Hello, this is Kristen Ayers, CEO of Bootcamp Digital, and welcome to our Q&A and digital news update for May 1st. I am very excited that you are joining us. Q&A and digital. There we go. Sorry, I was just checking in to make sure this was working okay. And I'm really excited you're joining us, and I have a lot of great news to share with you today. So without further ado, let's dive in and get started. For those of you who are new, here's how today is going to work. We will spend the first part of our call, the first 30 minutes or so, focusing on the latest in digital marketing news. So you'll get the latest digital news in our first 30 minutes or so. From there, we will transition into the Q&A section of our call. So for the Q&A section, if you're probably watching us here right now, just like this, probably you're pressed play though. And then if you scroll down, you'll see topics down here. And if you scroll just below it, you'll see the opportunity for you to create a question in the digital, in the Q&A call section. So if you have a question about something that we cover in the news brief, you can feel free to jump right in and ask it right away. Or if you have a question about something else, you can ask it whenever you have time, and we'll answer all of your questions during the call today. So again, questions about the digital news brief or anything else on your mind are totally fair game for the Q&A section of this call. So get your questions in, and we will have a fun and exciting call today answering them. So let's start off with our digital news. So I wanted to start touching on a subject that Allison covered with you guys last month, which is Cambridge Analytica and Facebook. So we always start these calls with Facebook because Facebook is one of the more dominant players in the digital landscape, both in organic social media as well as in online advertising. And so what's really interesting is that when the Cambridge Analytica scam broke and we saw #DeleteFacebook trending, people started to freak out thinking, wow, maybe Facebook isn't a sustainable strategy for my business. And there's studies like this that I saw. This came out at the end of March. How will Cambridge Analytica's abuse impact Facebook users? And you can see like 25% of people claim that they'll use Facebook less. 8% of people say they'll stop using it altogether. And so we saw these random studies where people said, I'm done with Facebook. But if we pause for a second and look at the reality is that from a Facebook usage standpoint, there has been very little impact. So despite all of the, how would I call them, the attention-grabbing headlines made to generate panic, the reality is that Facebook is still by and far the largest social network, and Facebook usage is actually still increasing despite all of the discussions about privacy. So while we all have good cause to be concerned a little bit about Cambridge Analytica and online privacy, if you're thinking about, well, how does this impact my Facebook strategy? There's a few things that you should take note of. One is Facebook has not yet reported any noticeable decline in user base. So people are still using Facebook all the same despite the recent scandal. The second thing, though, is that Facebook has, over the last couple months, rolled out a number of changes designed to help better protect your privacy. And some of these were covered last month. So if you missed this on the call last month, if you pop over to Insiders, you can watch the recording of the digital news update to see some of the changes that we covered last month. But in addition to what was covered last month, there are a few other things Facebook has done as well to try to really protect the user data that they've been given, because Facebook also realizes that if they don't do a good job protecting it, the government will start to regulate it more and more. And we saw Mark Zuckerberg testify to the US Senate somewhat hysterically, but also in Europe and other regions, there are a lot of questions coming out about this. So it definitely is worth paying attention to and taking note of. So let's talk about some of the other changes to Facebook. Now that we know that the sky isn't falling, one of the things that I think is interesting here is one of the things Facebook has rolled out to increase authenticity and transparency is individuals who manage pages with large followings have to be verified by Facebook. And essentially what Facebook wants to do is make it more difficult for people to use fake accounts for large pages. Now, if you've been with us for some time, you probably already know that fake accounts are explicitly against Facebook terms of service, and you do put your whole page at risk if you use a fake account. If you are still doing this, I highly recommend Facebook Business Manager. And if you are with our All Access Pass in the Facebook training program, you'll find our Facebook Business Manager Quick Start Guide, which will help you get started. But if you're not using Business Manager, switching to Business Manager will prevent this issue for you. And honestly, it is the best way to manage a Facebook page as well. So this only applies to big pages though. So if you're a small business page, you don't necessarily need to worry that Facebook is going to require your account to be verified. But basically what Facebook wants to make sure of is that they know who's placing ads and they can trace who's placing ads. And a part of that is because of all the scrutiny they've been under with some of these elections. So the next news that we have on Facebook, and this one I think is somewhat ironic given the theme of news around Facebook, but people have, there was a leak in Facebook, and people have now seen this new ad tool that Facebook is looking to roll out, that it's called a loyalty prediction tool. And basically what it'll do is it'll look at your past behavior and it will model out your future behavior, including your purchases. So this is, in my opinion, a little bit of a risky choice for Facebook because I think it's the kind of stuff that just makes people uneasy. But data modeling and artificial intelligence isn't something that's necessarily new. The reason I wanted to show you this today, so Facebook hasn't launched this yet. This is basically a leak. But the reason I wanted to mention it today is because it touches on a key trend that I think is worth paying attention to in the digital space, which is artificial intelligence. So a big part of this is that the artificial intelligence that it's using and sort of the modeling is something that we'll start to see more and more of with Facebook, where Facebook is getting more and more predictive. And if we look at some of the new things that Facebook has started to roll out in terms of ad objectives, where they're looking at, well, who's most likely to buy from you? They're getting all the way down to that conversion area. I think we'll start to see more features like this from Facebook. So this is more just like something to watch and think about. Something else that I wanted to mention, and I'll pause for a moment to talk about this now, is GDPR updates. So I'm going to give you like the GDPR in a nutshell guide here. So some of you say, maybe, I don't even know what you're talking about, Krista. This sounds super jargony. Some of you maybe say, hey, I've heard of this and I'm not sure what it is. And maybe some of you say, yeah, I have a general idea what this is. I'll just give you the quick overview of GDPR. So GDPR is regulation coming out of Europe, specifically around collecting user data and the obligations that businesses have to sort of protect and manage user data, and also to give users control of their data. So what GDPR is really about, so it's a set of legislation based in Europe, but in the age of the internet, even if you don't operate out of Europe, chances are, like us, you have all sorts of customers in Europe, so you do need to think about this. But essentially, it's about how you manage people's data and making sure that if you collect data from somebody, so if you collect someone's information, they have a clear idea of what you're doing with it. They can see the data that you've collected about them, and they can ask for you to remove it. That's kind of like, in a nutshell, what I would say are the key things that GDPR requires. So as a result of this, almost every social network and many other marketing technology tools are updating their terms of service to comply with GDPR. So for example, one of my favorite tools, which is Unroll Me, that allows you to manage your internet spam. A colleague of mine based in Amsterdam today said he got a notification from them and they said, "Are you based in Europe? Yes or no?" And he said, "Yes." And they said, "You can't use our service anymore." So they're just actually turning it off for people who would be impacted by GDPR. But what we see is Facebook, and honestly, almost every social network is updating their terms of service to apply with to comply with GDPR. And really, it's about how you collect data and what you do with it. The most important things really for you to understand is the obligations that you have as somebody who's collecting data. So Facebook's updating their terms of service really to protect themselves. But in addition to that, if you're using things like Facebook Pixel to track people, you may need to actually get consent off people so that they know that you're tracking their behaviors. So you'll be able to catch the link. We have a post that will go live later today with all the links of what we're covering. So you'll be able to get this link and you can read it in detail. I didn't want to go through in too much detail because, again, I literally have spent hours and hours on GDPR updates. But just to give you an idea of the impacts that it's having. And I also have another link in here about getting ready for GDPR. So you can also read this article just to give you some additional information. So if you notice all these terms of service updates, that's what it is. And I believe GDPR comes into effect very shortly. So it's something that businesses are really starting to get serious about and pay attention to. The next thing that I want to share with you, we could argue this isn't really an update, but this is something I thought was really interesting that I stumbled across, and it's this guy who's actually the head of Facebook newsfeed, and he gives you a video walkthrough of how Facebook's newsfeed algorithm works. Now, when we talk about Facebook's algorithm, we usually still talk about it in the context of EdgeRank, which really is the original way that Facebook described the algorithm. The algorithm over time has gotten smarter and it adapts to each individual, but the premise of how it works is really the same. When I compare this to how we typically explain Facebook's algorithm, so the way we typically explain Facebook's algorithm, if you've been paying attention for a while, is that we'll talk about your connection to the entity that made the post, your connection or how good the post itself is doing, and then recency or time decay. And really, it's the same stuff that Facebook is talking about in this, but they position it a little differently. And so I just wanted to quickly walk you through this because I think it's a little interesting. The first thing that Facebook looks at is inventory. And I thought this was really interesting because inventory is basically the supply side, which we sometimes forget. But how many updates are there that you could see? And one of the things that we know over the last year, people are spending less and less time on Facebook. So if people are spending less time, presumably there's fewer status updates. So that could also mean the inventory is declining, which would increase your probability of being seen. So inventory says, well, how many people are fighting for attention here? And that's not something we've typically talked about because the inventory is always much larger than your attention span. But it is interesting to keep in mind that that is a factor. The next one is signals. And signals is basically the information about the story and who posted it. So they'll look at not only the story, but they also look at things like how fast your internet connection is and what phone you're on. So if you're on a feature phone, those still exist in some parts of the world, I promise. If you're on a feature phone, then Facebook probably wouldn't show you videos, for example. Then they have predictions. And so in terms of predictions, Facebook will predict how likely you are to respond to a given piece of content. And again, this one's not really new, but they'll predict what they think you're going to do. And then that feeds into your relevancy score where they say, well, how relevant is this for this particular user? So I wanted to share this because I don't think there's anything new here. So this isn't linked to some kind of new thing about Facebook's algorithm, but it really still works the same way. It's just a different way to think about the factors. And the bottom line is regardless of how you explain the factors and what you call them, what Facebook's trying to do is get the most relevant content to the right person. So what Facebook wants to do is say, okay, hey, you, Krista, what is most relevant to you? And let me get you that stuff. And so if you always keep that in mind, that's how you kind of future-proof your newsfeed strategy anyways. So all these little hacks that people have where it's like, oh, take an image and turn it into a video. I mean, gosh, that's not going to work for very long. Facebook's not stupid. But if you think about big picture, what Facebook is really looking for is what are the signals about what content they should send you and how likely are you to like it? And that's kind of the bottom line on how Facebook thinks about this. And if you want to dive in and read this in a little more detail, you can go ahead. What I really like about it is that it's, if you excuse the expression, straight from the horse's mouth, in that Facebook is sharing their own specific ideas right here. Okay, the next thing that we have, and this is very, very, very cool, is especially if you spend any amount of money on Facebook ads, is Facebook has expanded their A/B testing capabilities. And they've added some additional reporting features. But I've been working a lot on Facebook ads this past week because we have a big sale on right now. We're doing our certification at 50% off. So it's the first time we ever did a sale on any of our products. So we wanted to see, well, can we smartly use Facebook ads? And so I've spent a lot of time really looking at our campaigns because this gave me an opportunity and an excuse to dive in and get my hands dirty a little bit with Facebook. And one of the things that I saw as soon as I logged in is right at the top, Facebook actually promotes this new split testing feature. And so maybe I'll take a moment and just explain what this is versus some of the optimization features built into Facebook. So let me just, I'm going to open campaign ad set ad. Okay, so if you are familiar with Facebook setup, I'm just actually opening one of the pictures in image search because it's faster. So if you're familiar with Facebook's existing setup, whenever you run a campaign on Facebook, right, you start with a campaign, which is what do I want to achieve? Okay, for me, I want to promote a sale of our social media certification. Next is the ad sets. So the ad sets are basically the unique target audiences that I want to reach. And at the ad set level, I could also do different timing, or I could also set a budget at the ad set level. And then below that, I have multiple ads. So let's say my campaign is 50% off, and then I have ad set one over here for people who have visited my website. So then within this ad set of people who visited my website, I might test 4 or 5 different ads because I want to see, well, what will people respond best to? So I could use the same picture and some different text variations. I can try different concepts. And what Facebook will do is they'll test all my different stuff and they'll send the best ad to the best person at the best time. So this is built into how Facebook ads work. So if you just set up an ad this way, if you start with your campaign, you set up your ad set, and then you run multiple ads within your ad set, Facebook will automatically optimize your ads, and it will put your budget behind the ad that gets the best results. So that's kind of cool. And that's already happening built into Facebook's ad functionality. And actually, almost all ad networks work this way. So this isn't really unique to Facebook. Google just they call it like campaign. And then I think this is called ad group is really the only difference. But this is how they all work. So what's really nice about this is you can automatically quickly test and optimize what's going on. The thing about testing this way is that, strictly speaking, you're not running an A/B test. So what is an A/B test, and why does this not count as an A/B test? Well, you're not running an A/B test in this case because in an A/B test, you should only be testing one variable typically. And then you want to see how something performs with all else being equal. When you try to optimize an ad in this way, Facebook isn't trying to show both ads to the exact same types of people. Facebook is just trying to get a feel for what they think does better and put the money behind it. On the other hand, if you use Facebook's new A/B test, what Facebook will do is it will try to hold everything else consistent within the media buy. So when you use the A/B split testing feature, what Facebook will do is it will hold all the other variables as consistent as possible. Things like the frequency that people see your ad with, the types of people that see your ad, the time of day. Think of like all the other things. So in this simple ad set structure, Facebook's not really worried about being scientific to show you which ad is best, all else equal. They're just saying, hey, people seem to like this, let's put some more money behind it. Here, they will go out of their way to hold everything else constant so that you can actually, in a controlled environment, test your ads specifically. And this is now built right in to the Facebook ad platform. If you use Business Manager, you'll see it at the top when you go to create a new ad. I saw it and I was really excited about it. And there's a few different things you can do. You can split test for engagement. So you could say, well, I wonder which ad will get better engagements. And you could run your split test that way. And then they have all sorts of great reporting. So if you're serious about Facebook ads, this could for sure be worth checking out because it makes it much easier for you to run split tests within Facebook, which is just going to give you a more scientific view of what people are responding better to and why. The next update is regarding Facebook and how they're dealing with creators. I'm going to keep this one short because I'm not sure it's relevant to everyone. But essentially what Facebook has done is Facebook wants to be a media platform, right? So Facebook wants to suck as much time from you as possible. And so one of the best ways to do that is to get you watching videos there because Facebook currently is actually losing out to YouTube in terms of where people are spending their time. So Facebook a while ago created Facebook Watch, which is where you can watch longer format content. And now it's giving creators new ways to monetize their videos and it's trying to push people to watch stuff. So you may notice this as a user. If you're a content creator, I'd recommend digging in a little more detail, but you'll need to have kind of like a show where you have regular content that already has an audience to really take advantage of this, but it's still worth looking at. And you'll also probably be noticing this as a user. So now let's switch gears and go to Instagram. Instagram also owned by Facebook. One of the fastest growing social networks. The big thing that I wanted to share quickly on Instagram that is the first time I've seen it in the context of Instagram is that one of the best practices we often talk about for video is make them square or vertical. So it's funny because I have friends who work in video and their biggest pet peeve used to be when people would record video with their phone, they would record vertical video. Like this is vertical video, right? So the phone is up and down and not sideways. Well, it used to drive people crazy because your TV is horizontal and that used to be where we would watch the most video. And your computer's also horizontal. But your phone is not. Your phone is vertical. So Facebook for a long time has said square or vertical video is what performs best because you can see here, it takes over more of the screen. So if you look at a vertical video, it basically takes over the whole screen with the experience. If it was horizontal, it would kind of be caught out. It would only take up, maybe a third of the screen or so. So we've recommended and Facebook has recommended vertical video for a long time. But what I really like is that now they're also talking about it with Instagram and really focusing your Instagram videos on horizontal as well. Or vertical as well. So keep that in mind with your Instagram videos if you want them to break through. I'll cover this real quick. This is just something in testing phase, but I like to keep you guys in the loop. So if somebody asks you about this stuff, you know exactly what they're talking about. But Instagram launched or is testing something called name tags. And basically what it lets you do is create a special image and then people can scan the image in order to follow you. So Snapchat has this built in where you can scan people's codes in order to quickly and easily be able to follow them on Snapchat. So essentially that's what they're testing as well. And you can see it up there. So I didn't see it on my Instagram, but often when they test things, some people get it, some people don't. So you can take a look at it, but really cool. So if it happens, jump on it right away because it could be a great way to start building a following for your stories. Excuse me. Okay. The next thing that I thought was also kind of cool is Instagram launched a tool called Data Download to let you leave is what this headline says. But basically, what they did is they created a data download feature where if you want to leave Instagram, you can download all of your content. So one of the reasons people wouldn't leave Instagram is because they can't get their information. But you can see GDRP mentioned here. One of the things about GDRP is you should be able to get all of your information that you've given someone. And so part of it is related to that. But basically what you see here is Instagram's just making it easy for you to download all of your information. WhatsApp announced that they're going to be rolling it out, and Facebook already has this feature, actually. So if you, again, the links are all on the blog post, which will go live shortly. So if you want to take a look at your information and download it, there's links in this article so you can actually download all of your stuff. So this is just kind of a FYI. So I only have one article today on Twitter, and this is maybe a joke that makes me laugh, maybe not you, but my Twitter news is actually not about Twitter at all, but it's the only article I saw with Twitter in the headline this month. But Reddit now has as many users as Twitter. And the only reason I wanted to mention this, so Twitter has about 300,000 active users. Reddit now has around the same number. And the reason I wanted to mention this is because I do think with social media, we spend so much time on the tools, you know, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. We sometimes forget these lesser known or lesser discussed platforms where big discussions are taking place, big traffic is being sent from, and you could potentially have an impact. Now, it's not as easy as creating a business account and broadcasting messages, but you know, Reddit may be something that you want to be thinking a little bit about as it continues to grow and get bigger. And so maybe maybe it would be good to know if you guys are interested. Next month, maybe I can go into Reddit in a little more detail. So you can see I'm over in the would you like to learn more about Reddit? 2Ds. I'm not a very good speller, so don't hold that against me. But I'm putting this in the discussion forum. So I'm just putting this in the discussion forum real quick. So you should see it in the topics in just a second. If you'd like us to cover Reddit going at the next call, maybe you should see you're watching the live cast. Would you like to learn more about Reddit? Here's my question at the top. If you would like to chime in and say yes, and that'll give me an idea of how much interest we have in it. So just say yes here, and we can consider whether or not it might be relevant to cover next time. But Reddit is big and growing. It's essentially a discussion forum, and a lot of viral content comes out of there. Okay, let's switch gears and cover LinkedIn. So this one made me throw up in my mouth a little. Not really. I have dry humor, but LinkedIn is now allowing GIFs or GIFs. I don't know the right way to say it. Maybe someone can tell me. But LinkedIn is now allowing GIFs in their messaging. So not only for Facebook. I was a little surprised, to be honest. I like to think of LinkedIn as a more professional network, and I certainly don't typically think of this as professional communication. That's why I said this kind of makes me vomit. But interesting, and you know, I'll be curious to see if I see people actually using them and how well received they are in the context of LinkedIn. The next update that we see on LinkedIn is 2/3 of B2B marketers think that video should be the biggest platform that they use, according to a LinkedIn study. And I just wanted to mention this quickly because we've seen LinkedIn launching more and more video features. They're definitely late to the game when it comes to video, but they still are adding a lot of video features, and we are seeing video content in the LinkedIn newsfeed get priority. So if you're not up on your video game yet, now is the time to do it. So really start thinking. And what I would recommend is test and experiment. So if you're new to video, if you're B2B and you're struggling a little bit on what exactly could your video strategy be, what I would suggest is just start testing a few different things to see what would work best for you and what your audience specifically is responsive to. And then you can kind of up your production value and dive deeper into the things that people are most responsive to. So just something to think a little bit about as you're doing it. And I will, I just posted, oops, okay, so I'll show you real quick over on my LinkedIn. Here we go. So just since we're talking about this, and if we're not connected on LinkedIn yet, feel free to go ahead and connect with me. But something I was thinking of, you know, I don't like to just read the news and it in one ear out the other. I try to think of, am I making the most of this? Could I be applying it more? And so I created this quick video on LinkedIn today where I was just prepping for this call actually and shared a little bit of information about it. And so insiders is, you can see it here. So this was just a quick video. It took me 2 minutes to make. I didn't even add subtitles because I didn't have time today. But you know what I want to do is see, well, okay, it's just been live for 30 minutes, but how many people are viewing it? What kind of responses am I getting? Maybe I can also post it on Facebook and just start testing and experimenting. So just something to consider, test and experiment as much as you can with simple, quick video content. Not everything needs to be a huge investment. And even for B2B and LinkedIn, you know, really start thinking about it. Something else we've seen on LinkedIn that kind of, I should have had this follow the GIFs update, but LinkedIn also just launched more features for video creators. So if you're creating video within LinkedIn, you can actually add these like sticker things, and you can add filters as well. So this is available. So the video I shared with you, I just recorded the video on my phone and then I uploaded it to LinkedIn. If you record in the LinkedIn video recorder or whatever you would call it, that's where you'll see these features available. And so you can add text and these stickers, I think, to try to make it more interesting. So, you know, interesting. Again, you may want to experiment and just see, does your audience respond to them? Are they relevant to you? I haven't played with it yet, but maybe I'll do that next. So stay tuned on my LinkedIn and I'll try, maybe tomorrow, I'll try playing with these filters and share another video and see how that goes. So our next LinkedIn update is something you may have noticed. I just wanted to mention this quickly because I saw it come up on a lot of discussion forums that I'm in about digital marketing. But LinkedIn did a test where they actually required people to use hashtags in their status updates. So for a while, if you went to post on LinkedIn, you could get a message that said, you see this, add a hashtag to finish your post and get it to the right people. And LinkedIn literally was not publishing status updates that didn't include a hashtag, which it's one thing to encourage them. It's super weird to me that they were forcing them, but you can see that here. And it was a test. It probably shouldn't be happening, but if someone asks you about it or if it happened to you, mystery solved. Okay, switching gears to Snapchat. So the big news in Snapchat this month is they actually laid off a ton of people. And the reason I point this out is because the people that they laid off were from their advertising division. Now, if you've been following these calls, one of the things you know is Snapchat has really struggled with their business platform and their advertiser platform, because a part of what makes Snapchat so great is that it is really organic. The content disappears. All of these features that users love make it harder for businesses to get a good return on investment. And laying off that many people in a restructuring from their advertising department, I think sends a signal that maybe Snapchat is not doing so well. So again, just a quick kind of FYI to keep you up to date. Okay, we're going to switch gears away from social networks for a little bit and talk about first search engines. So the first thing that's kind of cool is Google has switched to infinite scrolling on mobile search. So infinite scrolling means if you think of on your desktop search, it shows 10 results and you click to go to the next page. What Google will do is it'll look more like a Facebook news feed where when you scroll to the bottom, new content just loads. So what's interesting to me with this is you've probably heard the expression, or you may have heard the expression, the best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google results, because nobody clicks there. And actually, that's incorrect. The best place to hide a dead body is Bing. But anyways, nobody clicks on page 2 is the big joke in search engine circles. Well, to me, what's interesting is if infinite scrolling, where you don't have to choose to click that next page button, I kind of wonder if that could have an impact on whether or not people actually scroll down and see more content. So something worth, I think, paying attention to, because it could mean that even if you're later down in the search results, you could still get an impact. Another update that we saw that I wanted to mention from Google is, so this is a fairly innocuous article. Google confirms algorithm update released on April 16th. But the news here is typically the way we tend to think of Google updates is that Google does these big updates, and an update would be like, penguin or panda, or, and they name them hummingbird. So typically Google names their updates and it's like a big thing and everyone talks about it. But what Google has done twice now, they did it in March and in April. They just said, yeah, we release changes all the time to make our results better. And sometimes they focus on specific things, sometimes they're broad. Yeah, we changed our algorithm. So I think what this signals is that Google is maybe just tweaking the algorithm as they go. And it'll be interesting to see if we still get these big updates or if they maybe switch to this continuous improvement type of model. But I think it definitely is worth watching. We're going to switch gears from search and talk a little bit about digital advertising. So one thing that I just wanted to give you a quick second of food for thought on is Amazon's advertising platform is actually huge and largely ignored by marketers. But Google released their annual shareholder report, and something that they didn't even mention was that they got $3 billion from ad revenue. That's billion with a B. And so Amazon's ad business is big and it's growing quickly. What's nice is it still is ignored by a lot of people. So this could also be an opportunity, especially if you're selling products online where, people are on Amazon shopping. This could be an opportunity for you to get in on something. Yeah, it's big and proven, but not everyone is there yet. So just something I thought this is like a little tidbit to keep your eye on. The next thing, this is just really quick. Google launched what they're calling the Reach Planner for YouTube and video ad forecasting. So if you run video ads or you run any ads, one of the challenges always is forecasting your reach and frequency and your budget. And so Google now has a Reach Planner for YouTube ads. So if you want to be able to know, well, how many people will I reach? What will the impact be? There's where you can find it. Another quick update on YouTube's ad platform. They have expanded skippable ads into their TrueView platform. So if this all sounds foreign to you, you're probably not doing a lot of advertising on YouTube. But essentially, one of the things that YouTube realizes is that sometimes brands want to get a lot of reach and they don't need these longer view formats. So YouTube has longer view formats, 10 or 15 seconds, but even after 5 seconds, an ad can have an impact. And, on Facebook, heck, people only see most videos for 2 seconds, and Facebook claims that has a big impact. So the big news here is that you can now buy TrueView Reach ads where people can skip after 5 seconds. So now they can skip the ads before they would have to watch the longer format, but it'll be cheaper for you to buy because they can skip. So interesting to see if that has an impact and something you can test with. The next thing that I just wanted to share with you is some data that I found on Marketing Land. So this is, in the scope of digital advertising, but this shows the breakdown of where global ad spend is going by medium. And what I think is amazing is that if you look at TV, 34%, okay, it's still the biggest, but if you were to combine desktop and mobile internet, it's bigger than TV already. So digital is already bigger. If you're trying to justify your investment in things like this, in your own skills or in your ad budgets, it's helpful to know just how big it is, because I think it's bigger already than a lot of people realize, and it will only continue to grow. Something else I saw that was really cool, and this is maybe more in the scope of innovation, but it's about using augmented reality right in banner ads. So you can see here, this is a banner ad from Home Depot. And essentially, look at this. So I see the Christmas tree, and then I can use augmented reality where it puts the Christmas tree from the ad into my living room. You probably have some fun with stuff like this. Convince people you've bought new stuff and put it in your house. But really interesting. There's actually an app that does this with Santa Claus. I don't know if anyone's seen it, but there's an app like this where you take a picture of your Christmas tree and it puts like Santa Claus in front of it for you to tell your kids Santa was there. But this is in advertising. So really cool way to maybe make your ads more interactive and get people participating and engaging. So I thought this was kind of cool and worth sharing. Another quick thing, Google is shutting down their URL shortener. So goo.gul is their URL shortener, and they are shutting down. So if you use it, it is going away. If you don't use it, who cares anyways? Okay, I want to share just a handful more links with you. And again, as I'm just wrapping up, if you have questions about anything in digital marketing, something we've covered, something we haven't covered, feel free to pop over. You're watching the live cast above, scroll down and type it in over here, and I will address it in just a couple minutes. So one thing that I thought was really interesting is this is where people are spending their time online. So this is share of time. So this chart shows you where do people spend their time online. And what we're seeing actually is Facebook is declining in terms of, and it's not huge, but it is declining. And this is not new. This was announced in Facebook's annual report. Facebook announced in their 2017 annual report that the time spent in Facebook was declining. And Facebook spun it into a positive and said, we're creating a better experience so people don't need to spend so much time here. But hey, if you make your money by selling ads, this is probably concerning. But the big winner is Google. And especially YouTube. That's where people are going and spending more time. So if you're creating video content already on Facebook, it might be worth, dusting off your gears and getting into YouTube. And we're actually working on a new YouTube training course this month that talks a little bit about how you can get more bang for your buck with your YouTube channel. And that should be out in the next month or so. But YouTube is what's eating away at Facebook right now. So it's the Google versus YouTube battle to watch. Something else, just a quick FYI, Google announced their first quarter results. And again, $31 billion in revenue. So Facebook, I would say, is faltering a little in terms of ad revenue is going up, time on site is down, a lot of negative PR. Google is a positive story right now. Google has 31 billion with a B dollars in ad revenue, beating expectations, and YouTube is stealing time away from Facebook. So good to know. And then one last thing. So I touched on Snapchat just a little. Their ad platform doesn't seem to be resonating well, and that's really not news. But the thing to consider is it still is teens' favorite social platform. So more teens are on Facebook than anywhere else. But Snapchat is their preferred platform by far, followed by Instagram. Now, Instagram is owned by Facebook. So, and Facebook is also declining in the teen audience. So just something to keep in mind. If you're reaching younger audiences, you may want to spend time in Facebook, and for sure make sure your content is optimized for Instagram, because that's going to be a key place where you can play. So with that wraps up the Q&A portion of our call.